I am not a historian. I do enjoy history, learning about interesting people, interesting events, but I'm just a casual observer on the surface. Now, when I first picked up this book, Summer of Blood, I'd never read a Dan Jones book before, and I didn't know it was his first book he had ever published. So I just picked it up, figured I'd give one of his a try, and off I went. Now, I guess I just have to say it. I was not too impressed by this book. That has almost nothing to do with how the author writes, his style, and more about the story itself. Now, this story takes place over just a short amount of time. I believe just one summer. Of course, there's some events leading up to it and a little bit after, but I think the main bulk of it was during one summer in the 14th century. And what it basically boils down to is people get taxed, they get angry. They get taxed more, they get angrier. They get taxed more, and pick up your sword, grab your torch. We're ending this right now. And that's pretty much what happens. People rise up, they go from town to town to town, burning stuff down, killing those they think deserve to be killed, and moving on to the next town until they eventually wind up at the big city of London. I'm going to try not to spoil anything. I know these events happened hundreds of years ago, but it was new information to me. So if you're wanting to read it for the first time, I don't want to ruin anything for you. But it's basically just a mob with torches and pitchforks. There's some interesting events that happen. There's some interesting people. But when you get done with it, you're just like, okay, well, what are we doing here? It was just, that could have happened anywhere, anytime. It's almost seemed like other than the fact that it went on for so long, and they actually got pretty far with it. I was pretty surprised, how it all went down and wound up. But it's just like, it's an angry mob, I get, he does, in the book, he talks about the historical significance, about, I believe it was like the first time that people rose up like this against the upper class, and that it showed future generations that this kind of thing could be done. So if you're a big studier of European history, English history, maybe this is very interesting to you, and you can see, oh, okay, now I see how things trickled on down further into the future after this. But for a casual observer, reader, enjoyer of history, this was very meh. Like I said, you get a few interesting characters, a couple events, you're like, ooh, that's interesting, or what? How does that happen? Why would he do that? Pretty interesting stuff. Not mostly, but some of it comes from the king at the time. Was young. He hadn't really gained his confidence and bravado, and so he wasn't really sure what to do when all these people come marching up to London. And there's parts of it where they talk about him just like standing on the Tower of London, looking out. He could just see the fires raging, and it's just like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? Let's go talk to him, say please stop. So yeah, I'm not going to dawdle on about this too long. The story itself wasn't that interesting to me. The writing style, after I read this, I did read Dan Jones's the Templars book, which I think he wrote maybe like 8 years after this one. And I can tell a little that his style or his flow was a little better in the newer book. This first one, trying to read through it, there's so many times he just puts people's names in there, like a lot. He'll be like, and then they went to this town, and that's where da-da-da-da of blah blah lives, and John of Canterbury, and just goes on. You're just like, okay, again, casual fan. You're just like, all right. And I hate when history books do too much of that, or nonfiction books do that, because you're trying to think, okay, do I need to remember this person's name? Is he just saying this because he wants to be informative? So yeah, some of those names you're just like, and then you go maybe 50 pages and so it's like, oh, did I hear that name before? So some of that, it's like, all right, Dan, we don't need to know every single Joe, Jim, and Bob who lived on that street. But again, if you're a deep diver, you'll love that part of it. As I said later in the Templars book, there's less of that. So I enjoyed that one a lot more, but that's for another video. As for this one, Summer of Blood, it could pass. I'm not going to recommend it to anybody that I know. So take what you will from that. Casual fans, skip. Deep divers, check it out. All right, that's all for me. I'll see you next time.